Welcome to episode 76 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast, where we talk about the best Australian comedy show from the 90s ever made, Frontline, and other D-Generation comedy tidbits. My name is Matt, and joining me on this podcast today is Alison, Daniel, Kim, and Tony. Huzzah! And I'm going to intrude here on the whole, I should have hit record earlier on this because we just went into a full-on DVD op-shop haul type thing, talking about any questions for Ben and seeing what we can gather for a Champagne Comedy Podcast fundraiser. And while I had mentioned it previously, we're so close to having enough to try and sell at least one. So...
And how much would you expect to pay for an Any Questions for Ben DVD or Blu-ray?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
Don't answer.
Yeah, well, it'll be all across maybe like, I don't know, $7.
$7?
Oh, $7.
Bargain.
Yeah, bargain. No, I don't know. I'm still trying to suss that out. But it'll all be going towards the podcast and the running costs, and especially for champagnecomedy.com, and also coffees for all of us.
Well, some of those things are starting to get a bit rare. I mean, I can't imagine Any Questions for Ben is ever going to be reprinted. So if you don't have it, this might be your last chance unless you go to your local op shop.
That's a great selling point, yes.
Yeah, and
where there's a sky-high pile.
Yeah, well, I think we've got them all, so we've made them rare.
That is the plan. You grab all of them so there's none on the shelves, and then go, well, if you want it, this is the spot to go.
Well, the amount of Thank God You're Here's I have of season 1 and season 3, and then suddenly it's a fair bit, and I'm going, what is season 2 good enough to keep or something like that? Because I'm not finding any of those around.
Well, like the dish came out on Blu-ray recently, I thought, but that's out of print now again. So, yeah, stuff you think would be everywhere is not commercially available.
Oh, well, there you go. So
keep looking. As I posted on the Late Show page on Facebook, I spotted the VHS of season 1 of the best bits of the Late Show, and I wasn't even looking for VHSs, and I just saw it sitting there, and it was only $1 or $2.
And someone offered to trade that for a VHS of Devil at Your Heels, if you look at the comments. But and speaking of which, they are in Canada, I should say. They've remastered the Devil at Your Heels on Blu-ray, which we mentioned a little while ago in the podcast. But you know what? We're talking all about that shit, and we should be putting it in. There we go. Now, just imagine I played that earlier in the show. So
you're the editor, and you could cut that in.
Yes,
I know.
Okay.
I'm just going along with the natural flow of the conversation.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
You know what? One of those things where the clock in the background keeps showing weird and wrong time.
Yeah.
Well, it is now this time, and we've just gone back 10 minutes.
Or when people are eating a croissant and suddenly there's more bites that they haven't eaten. And
Well, let's hope the continuity is good in this episode of Frontline, because we've got a few incidents where some of the reporters may need to be edited into certain scenes.
Yes, good
Bit of
point.
a spoiler alert for this one.
Very true.
Well, the only news I got for Backchat is just really, have you been paying attention? And Thank God You're Here nominated for a Logie. But they're like for the same Logie. No mention of the cheap seats.
The best comedy entertainment program, and they're up against Sampang Tonight, Channel 10, and 3 ABC titles: Gruen, Hard Quiz, and The Weekly with Charlie Pickering.
I'm surprised that Sampang Tonight got a squeeze in for it. Maybe it was like 2 episodes, which they got in before the cutoff. Or even first episode.
Do we know what the cutoff is? Because I also looked at that and went, okay.
Yeah, it's
that
cutting
got
it
in
fine.
under the wire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
going to make a comment about there's no cutoff for quality, but that would be a bit harsh on some of the ABC's lineup this year. I would guess to some extent the TV Week want to balance it out between the commercial networks and the ABC, because there must be some categories that, like if you did scripted drama, unless you do Home and Away, the commercial networks don't really have any. You would just be doing ABC and streaming shows.
The other notable thing would be Mark Downey, formerly of the original D Generation, who's up for a Best Supporting Actress Silver Logie for her role in The Newsreader.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
She was very good in that.
And also, what do we think about the lineup for the Gold Logie?
Oh, where it's very...
Hamish Blake, I think, has read the room quite well, I think.
Wait, hold on. I got my Daryl Summers T-shirt on, so...
The reaction shirt.
With the shock surprise.
That's available on the Redbubble shop, isn't it?
No, you had to contact me directly because apparently...
Special order.
Yeah.
It's all in this week's TV Week, packed with great family entertainment.
Oh, Jesus!
Daniel G., bring the program guide to us, please.
Start with a couple of quick letters from the Sydney Morning Herald Guide. The first one is from Marjorie Cummings in Eleonora. I think Frontline is excellent, but Steve Bisley is totally unsuited to the role he plays. All that shouting really jars. If he cannot be replaced, could he be induced to tone it down a little?
What? That's completely missing the point of the whole character.
Yeah. That's missing the point of how television is made. It's not like they're going to go, oh, quick, before we record this week's episode, the night before it goes to air, we're going to replace Simon Bisley. It's like that shit sailed months ago.
I feel like this woman just can't handle the swearing and wants there to be a nice producer, like it's some kind of, nice British sitcom or something.
This is reality. This is what it's like in the newsrooms.
Yeah.
So you've got to put up with it. If we have to, you do too.
To be fair, Steve Bisley has had quite a few great shouts throughout the series, most notably, stuff the kid! But I quite like this letter from Derek Elms of Bankstown with tongue very, very firmly in cheek. I'd like to comment on the recent Drop the Dead Donkey versus Frontline debate. I don't find either show at all funny, neither are they at all subtle. Now, the funniest satire of TV current affairs shows has to be A Current Affair. Talk about subtle skill in scripting. Okay, some of the skits are not all that convincing, but the cast with the master of comedy, Ray Martin, has me rolling around the lounge room in stitches. I cannot wait till they stop the repeats and make a new series.
And that was back from Jim Shembry, was it?
I hope that was letter of the week, if such a thing existed in the Green Guide.
I'm actually not quite sure because I just sort of cut it out of the letters page, but it does get an illustration of a man like leaning back in his recliner, laughing next to a donkey that's on the ground. I'm guessing rolling on the floor laughing, although the donkey's got its tongue out, which makes it look a bit deceived.
Okay.
Who knew they had AI back then?
I was going to ask if this drawing was done by that bloke who used to do the drawings in TV Week.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, you're talking about...
No, it looks a bit more lithography.
Oh, yeah, that's very lithography.
Oh.
That's really interesting. Okay, that's going on the Facebook page.
All right, we'll get to the program guide proper. So on ABC, we had a 7:30 report special about the survivors of Port Arthur. As I mentioned last episode, it's a year ago that the incident occurred. And then after that, you've got the comedy stylings of Frontline. Then at 8:30, Four Corners, 9:15 Media Watch, and at 9:30, the second episode of Smallest Room in the House, the series in which Australia's leading comedians provide a comical insight into their lives and careers. And this week it's Matt King with a show titled Blimey. So all I could find about this episode is that it may have been based on a comedy festival show from the previous year called Blimey, It's Mad King, telling the story of Matt's bittersweet journey from the streets of London's suburban flanges to Australian shores. Matt was born in Watford, Hertfordshire, England, moved to Australia at age 20 where he worked as a chef before meeting Jamoan, who suggested that he become a stand-up comedian, which he did in Australia for 15 years before returning to the UK. He's best known nowadays for playing the ghost of 1980s rock star Henry Mallett in the Australian drama series Spirited.
Oh, okay.
And as Superhands, the paranoid and untrustworthy fantasist who often takes recreational drugs during his debauched escapades in the British comedy series Peep Show. Okay, going to Channel 7, we've got Australia's Most Wanted at 7:30. The third episode of the fifth series of Full Frontal at 8:30, and at 9:30 we've got Millennium. Now the episode numbers have been jumping around quite a bit. So in previous weeks it was episode 1, then episode 3, and tonight we've got episode 6 of the first season. It's titled Kingdom Come. Forensic profiler Frank Black, Lance Henriksen, a member of the private investigative organization Millennium Group, chases a serial killer who targets clerics and holy men due to his frustration with his own faith. Then we've got SBS. We've got the Ericsson Cup highlights at 7:30. At 8:30, we've got Andreas Stretton meeting Wole Soyinka in Masterpiece. The Nobel Prize winner for literature, Wole Soyinka, discusses the dangers of his political activism in Nigeria. Then at 9:30, it's the 1993 French comedy Fausto, directed by Remy Duchemin. Fausto, Ken Hidjalin, enters an orphanage and is initially bullied, but then makes friends with a new bunkmate, Raymond, Francois Hautser. God, I really struggle with French names. He is apprenticed to Miatek, Jean Yan, a tailor in the Jewish quarter who teaches him the trade. Fausto charms everyone in the quarter and falls in love with Tony, Florence Darrell, the mechanic's daughter. He starts making outrageous suits for publicity, and after dressing Tony, decides that he wants to become a famous couturier. All right, Channel 9 at 7:30, we've got Friends. Now, there's a couple of spoilers in what I'm going to say here, because it's Season 2, Episode 20, originally aired in April 1996, and it's titled The One Where Old Yeller Dies. Phoebe's positive outlook of the world is shattered when she learns something about her childhood.
What you guys doing?
Monica's making us watch Old Yeller.
So why are you guys so upset? It's Old Yeller. It's a happy movie.
Yeah, but Phoebes, what about the end?
What, when Yeller saves the family from the wolf and everyone's happy?
That's not the end.
Yeah, that's when my mother would shut off the TV and say the end.
What about the part where he has rabies?
He doesn't have rabies, he has babies.
What? What's about to happen?
I've never seen this part before. Hey, Travis, what you doing with that gun? No, he's your buddy, he's your Yeller, no, the end. Okay, what kind of a sick doggy snuff film is this?
She then starts watching all the films with melancholic endings that her mother used to forbid her from watching during her childhood, and becomes seriously depressed, nitpicking over all the distressing details out of even the most cheerful films. So I think there's something a little bit charming about that, sort of shielding somebody from the cruel reality. Like, is there any sort of bad or sad ending that you wish you hadn't seen?
Well, a lot of people talk about what I'm saying is probably me and one other person, is when in My Girl, when Macaulay Culkin dies the bee stings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's also the classic Bambi one, or Turner and Hooch, where Hooch gets shot.
The only thing I can think of was I really didn't like that movie, Click, because it sort of just seemed to be one massive downer after another.
Click was terrible. That was
well, yeah, that too.
Movie. Yeah, I remember that, and just an endless stream of bad stuff happening, and then at the end, I've used the magic remote to get. It's like we had to sit through that. I can't erase those memories.
No.
The other sad ending is when all of them die in Boytown. I really wanted a sequel. I wanted Boytown 2.
Oh, look, I'm sure they could have found a way. We have the technology. We can rebuild them.
They can be like, the new Seekers. They can be like the new Boytown, where you get a new generation of... Nah.
I wouldn't put it past Marty Boomstein to just recruit 4 more middle-aged...
I assume that Marty Boomstein was constantly recruiting, people for new bands.
It would be Sons of Boomtown, or Boytown, Sons of Boytown.
It would just be their legitimate kids, and then you would find it like Glenn Robbins had survived the plane crash or something, so there was one left to lead them down the path.
They did it for insurance reasons or whatever like that. It's like, hey, if Buddy Holly, Richie Valens and the Big Bopper can do this, why can't we?
Yeah, there would be a way.
Yeah.
Not the way anyone would approve of, but yes.
And
would there be the new Boytown Confidential though, where I don't know.
Yeah, well, there'd be a better chance of that being made, I imagine.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think now if any Australian comedy films apart from Boytown, have really downer sort of endings. Because there must be a couple that tried to get serious in the last 5 minutes.
Actually, Wog Boy. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the way that it ended, which means that it was a downer of an ending because you could tell that they're going to make 2 more.
Yeah, I was going to say, the downer was that the story continued.
Yeah.
There must be, I'm trying to think now. I don't know, Ned, You Can't Stop the Murders. They stop the murders.
You're reading my DVD collection now.
We've all got those on the shelves.
Because Ned ends with a hand job. So I'm not joking.
Such a downer.
Yeah, such a downer, but a happy ending for Ned.
Death in Brunswick ends with him being punched out, even though he's got the girl.
Yeah,
well, that's true. Yeah.
And his mum's like in a wheelchair, sort of like she's like a paraplegic or something, isn't she? Oh God, it's been a long time since I've seen that.
Oh no, doesn't the dish end with them? We can't wait for Apollo 13. Everything will go right then. But no, I don't know. Maybe it's just the quality Australian dramas that have those grim endings that send you home feeling bummed out.
Yeah, they were really comedies.
All right, at 8 o'clock, Caroline in the City, Season 1, Episode 15, Caroline and the Bad Date. Annie convinces Caroline to ask out a man shopping for shirts at the mall. He turns out to be paranoid. Then at 8:30, we've got Water Rats, Season 2, Episode 12, titled One Dead Rat. 3 criminals, including those who kidnapped and terrorised Rachel, Catherine McClement, make a dramatic escape from a prison van and try to make their getaway in what?
A boat?
A trimaran.
Is it
a stolen boat on the Parramatta River?
Oh.
Yeah.
Love it.
At 9:30, Melbourne gets IMT and Sydney gets Super League Round 9, Brisbane versus the Bulldogs. Who do you think would win in a fight between Broncos and Bulldogs?
Bulldogs.
You reckon they would sort of tear the Broncos to shreds, or?
No, I would have gone Bulldogs because that was my grandfather's favourite team.
Okay, I was talking again. This is a little theory I've got that you should try and work it out based on the representative mascot. So actual Broncos versus actual Bulldogs.
Oh, okay. So the Bulldogs will bite the Broncos.
Bulldogs could chew the crap out of them, but the Broncos could
trample,
clomp.
Run away.
You and your active imagination, Daniel.
I think you should base it on the colour of the teams. Do we know what the colour of the teams are?
Yeah.
I haven't. Well, I mean, I don't know rugby league, let alone Super League at all. So I don't know what colour the jerseys would have been.
Shit and shitter. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go with shitter.
Yeah.
I think we should work it out on the basis of they're both sports teams, so who cares?
Yes.
Yes, Tony.
Is the correct answer.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right. Well, for those of you who do care, Broncos beat the Bulldogs 34-16. All right. Channel 10, and we're up to Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise.
Well, okay. What is it? What is it? I'm excited.
All right. Felicity meets an artistic couple who design and paint costumes for musicals and the ballet.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Richard visits the Bureau of Meteorology.
Ooh, that'll
Okay.
be exciting. The
Ooh.
bomb.
Only if the weather is appropriate. Anyway.
Yes, as long as the weather hasn't gone crazy.
Yeah. Whether or not he'll go. No, fine.
Lynn visits Tasmania's Gordon River, and Ian prepares a chicken salad.
Oh.
Okay.
You can win friends with that salad. I'll go for the chicken.
As long as you put a bit of protein in it, yeah.
Yeah.
At 8:30, Peak Practice, Season 2, Episode 9, titled Brave Face. Will faces a dilemma when he discovers that a fellow doctor has AIDS.
Oh.
I know.
Hearing aids?
I know.
No.
AIDS. The autoimmune deficiency syndrome.
Not a personal assistant.
No. Thank you.
And that really does seem product of its time. Like, I mean, these days being HIV positive it isn't that controversial, really.
Well, it's very, you can live with it. And I suppose at that time, it still had, I guess, not just the stigma, but it was also hard to survive still to an extent. And like Philadelphia, the film Philadelphia, that was quite a big film that a lot of people talked about, although that was more early 90s.
It was more early 90s. I'm still watching my Beverly Hills 90210, so I'm up to season 7, and Kelly, as part of her psychology course, is doing work in a hospice and working with AIDS patients. So it's still very much trying to educate people about it. At that very time it was manageable, but it was still a death sentence, so people were still dying from it. This particular character is in a hospice, and there's a scene where he accidentally cuts his hand and she gets blood on her hand and she's freaking out, but they just kind of educate people in a kind of a, it's a very thoughtful way, just saying there's nothing to panic about, that sort of thing, and you've got to just go get tested just to be safe. But yeah, it all worked out.
Did they break the fourth wall like during a major thing? And it's like in serious talk. Hi, I'm TV's Ian Ziring, and
yeah. So
but AIDS is no laughing matter.
Yeah. Jumping out of sharks and things. No, he didn't do that. That's a few years later down the track. But no, it was I thought, product of its time. It was very much a kind of a mid to
very
90s,
topical
I think.
in that era.
Yeah, and I think that because the people that she was working with are mostly gay, but it turned out, she actually got tested not because of the blood on her hand, but because she had unprotected sex with a man. So that was what the doctor said was the real reason why she should really get tested. So, yeah.
And at 9:35, rounding out the night for Channel 10, we've got Medivac, Season 2, Episode 7. A university student arrives at the hospital suffering from a virus that can be traced to a bat colony. What the fuck?
Wuhan?
Wow,
it actually says that. Yeah, from a virus that can be traced to a bat colony.
Oh, maybe that's where they got the theory.
It doesn't say what it is, but oh my God.
I think the problem is that bat colonies are full of diseases that are just not a good idea to catch.
Have you not seen the movie Contagion as well? So
I've seen Contagion. Oh, good Lord. Yeah. What about Outbreak with the Outbreak monkey?
Outbreak was monkey.
Yeah, that was the monkey one.
Yeah. Oh, have you seen 28 Days Later?
So 28 years later. Yeah. I can't. What was it that caused that disease? It was a breakout from a lab, wasn't it?
Animal rights activists break in to save a monkey from a lab, and the guy in the lab is a well-known UK comedy actor. Is like one of the scientists.
Nick Frost or something.
No, it's one of the guys from the Day Today.
Okay.
Well, I think
like David Schneider or something.
I think it is David Schneider. I could be wrong.
David Schneider's in a Bond film as well.
Yes, but
sorry, he's in Mission Impossible.
Yes,
he's in Mission
like
Impossible.
Looking horrified as they release and go, "Don't release that monkey! It's got the rage virus!" And then everyone starts spewing blood everywhere, and then all downhill for the UK.
Ah, okay.
And the new 28 Years Later movie is very good. I recommend it.
Okay, thank you.
And on that cheery note, let's get to the episode.
Okay.
Cool, thank you very much, Daniel. By the way, I was going to point out, I discovered in the op shop today as well, which is in sync with an early episode of Frontline where Mike, is getting the big names. So I get the big names episode. And then, bam, I find a copy of Mel Gibson Ransom on VHS.
Ooh,
so,
that's a good film.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson aside, but yeah.
More popular than Ernest Borgnine. or whatever it was.
With an introduction from Phyllis Diller.
Yeah.
All right. But we do have a guest intro because I did put the call out on the Facebook group and no one bit except for one person. And they're a long-time listener, first-time caller, and it is D. Asmo. He hasn't listened to the episode or the podcast for a while, so he's not going to hear this part right now.
Hello, I'm David Asmo. This is Frontline, Season 3, Episode 10, Eye Disease. Broadcast Monday, April 28th, 1997.
Oh, very professional. How far behind he is?
He just says he hasn't listened for a while, so it could be a couple of years.
I kind of understand again with the length of the episodes.
Yeah, we're still trying to get through our own episodes after still up to the late show season 2. All right. But as David Asmo has delightfully recorded for us. Thank you very much. The synopsis of this episode is a new researcher discovers the truth that in current affairs, egos rules. Meanwhile, Mike is working on a book about himself. The episode explores the notion that journalism today is increasingly about self-promotion. Journalists don't want to be reporters, they want to be stars. Mike, Brooke and Marty are all suffering from eye disease, as in quote, letter I disease.
See, I thought this was where they all caught a disease from a monkey, and just that
crazy.
I was watching the wrong show. Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. You're watching the Frontline that was in the US, the current that serious one.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we begin with a presentation at the Nerve Deafness Foundation where Mike is receiving an award for his contributions to the cause. Remember, it's all about Mike.
When I first met baby Joseph, I knew virtually nothing about nerve deafness. But then I began to prepare the story. I met with people, I spoke with them, and then I realised, as I was doing all this research,
he did all this research?
You ever noticed how many times he uses the word I?
You or I. I decided then and there that I should do a story. I had a responsibility to highlight the problem. I fought for it, I told it, and now I'm grateful to accept this award on behalf of Joe's family and I.
Well, it definitely was no Logie.
Wow, it's a lot of eyes.
No one counted them, did they?
No.
Nope. Too many.
Yep.
I was considering it, but there's too many eyes to mention. I was also like, if I had the time, I would try and work out who said the most eyes, but I got a life.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say.
Yeah. Good decision.
I know that we can get really pedantic and nitpicking, and we've counted stuff before, but even Mr. Pedantic here has limits.
Yeah.
We could have split it up because each of us got 5 minutes to analyse. We'd have done 5 minutes, 5 to 10. You'd have done 11 to 15.
And
no, don't worry.
And so
we all
forth.
have lives, right?
Yeah.
We absolutely do. That's why we're here.
Yeah, recording this podcast right now for our listener. The next day, there's a production meeting in the kitchen. Sorry, I'm sorry. I insult for all of us. Okay, I'll say that again. The next day, there's a production meeting in the kitchen, and Marty and Brooke are bidding over who should take what story. And then Kate walks in with her replacement, the lovely Carla.
Prousey, Carla's here.
Hello.
Hi, Carla, Kate's replacement? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good to see you again. You all set?
Yeah, Kate's just showing me around before she leaves.
When do you go?
This is my last day.
Yeah, I knew that.
I'll show you your desk.
I'll get us some flowers.
Yes.
Good.
And a card. It's very good of you.
Em's not cynical at all. Yeah, so this is the episode where friend of the podcast, Trudy Hellier, leaves.
Well,
it's quite a sudden departure, isn't it?
Well, it's like the sound guy leaving a couple of episodes ago. I suppose the show's wrapping up, and this is a way to tick off a few boxes and cover a few things that otherwise would have been a bit tricky to get across in one episode.
Yeah. Either that or maybe Trudy wanted out because she got work like the sound guy. I don't know. Did she? Do we know?
Oh, she was probably doing Run the Twist. Or
yeah, maybe.
Or what is it? Understanding English.
Yeah.
She was probably doing some work for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, there were no sort of pronouncements in the media gossip columns like there were with Torquil Nielsen's departure.
Yeah. Well, they just say she's going on a trip anyway, so I guess in theory, if she wanted to come back and they were doing more episodes, they could have just had a return.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, keep it open-ended. Mike chats to Jeffrey about the presentation and the media coverage, complaining he was labelled as a presenter and not a journalist. Poor Jeffrey. Honestly, he's just a sufferer towards Mike's... Anyway. They then rattle off some book title ideas.
I'm more than a journalist.
Actually, Mike, that could be a good title for your book. More than a journalist. Yeah. Well, I'll add it to the list.
Okay.
Something's wrong with it. It lacks something. Go through them again. Hello, I'm Mike Moore. I came, I saw, I interviewed. Through my eyes, current affairs and I, and more than a journalist.
Does lack something. It doesn't mention me.
Oh, but it'd have by Mike Moore.
Not enough. I should be in the title.
What about Mike Moore by Mike Moore?
I like that.
It's showing shades of Alan Partridge there, I think.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying these lists, these comedy lists that they're doing, because last week we had the nicknames that Mike was trying to get, and then there's another list coming up a bit later as well, which it just kind of allows the writer's room to just go nuts.
What book titles would you have for Mike?
Well, I was really surprised they didn't say more than a journalist and spell it M-O-O-R-E.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's too clever.
Well, I just thought that's where it was going, but it never got there. So.
But wait, there's more, M-O-O-R-E.
Well, yeah, so many more puns that they could have gone with.
So many more puns, yeah.
Yes.
More and more puns. More.
It's puntastic.
I suppose Mike wants his book to be a serious, take on his rise up the journalist ranks.
For sure.
Well, there were a lot around in that period, and there still are just endless sort of, biographies of journalists and politicians and other sort of, highbrow-ish kind of personalities. So.
The journalism one, not journalism ones, the politician ones are just a steady sort of stream. timed with elections. There's, if you're writing a book on the opposition leader and the election's coming up, you've got to get that book out there because no one's going to care if they lose the election and get dumped. So,
yep.
Whereas I don't know if Australia, I suppose the ABC still has high-profile journalists who would write a book about their careers, but you don't sort of get them. You can't imagine any of the current hosts of A Current Affair expecting their fans to be able to read.
The audio book is available. Sure.
Well, yeah, not being harsh, but it's like, it's not a show aimed at people who are going to buy a big, thick book and sit down and read it. They might listen to the audio book or, read a collection of interviews or something. But yeah, some sort kind of heavy biography is just not.
It'll be a picture
like
book.
Kerry O'Brien did like the Keating stuff, and I don't know if he did a biography. I assume Negus did one at some point. That type of journalist, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Honestly, a lot
actually,
of
Ray Martin strikes me as the exception to that rule. He might have done one. He must have done a book, surely.
There's definitely a Ray Martin book because I think I've got a copy around here, but
yeah, there'd be a Yana book. But as you say, the current sort of presenters of these shows are not writing books.
No,
Came through Yana and went. There we go.
Yes.
There you go. Well, a lot of the political books now are written by like the online political writers in Australia who sort of, might be doing stuff for The Guardian or some other websites or that, and a lot more lower. Their profile is a lot lower apart from being online, and sort of the book is a way for them to raise their profile rather than Mike's book, which would be, exploiting his profile.
I just thought of a totally random one for another journalist. If they wrote a book, McMulling her title by Jeff McMullen. Right?
Yeah.
So Ray Martin has a book. It was called Ray Stories of My Life, and it came out in 2009. A best-selling autobiography of one of Australia's most loved personalities. He tells the story of his less than stellar introduction to the glamorous world of television. Before he got to high school, he lived in 13 different places, 3 Australian states. His father was a violent drinking man who would lash out at his wife and children. And
God.
Yes, so it just talks about his warts and all autobiography of Ray Martin, and his world was as far away from Hollywood and movie stars and the bright lights as is possible to imagine. So that's available online. You can get it in paperback.
You could have had it as a title of Ray of Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, they're saving that title for Ray Gun's book when that comes out.
Ray Gun.
That pop, lock and loaded, yeah. As Carla shadows Kate's activities, she accidentally learns what it's like to actually work with Brooke, or, talent.
Mike Moore exclamation mark. More than a... Oh, I don't like that one.
What's that all about?
Mike's writing a book.
Oh, really? What about?
Himself. Don't worry, it's an ego thing. Now, has Kate shown you everything?
Yep, set to go.
All right. I'm doing a story on childcare centres facing closure
due to government cutbacks, Prowsey told me.
Right. What we need to do is find a childcare centre, one under threat, preferably somewhere horrible.
Horrible?
Western suburbs. Then we should get details of the cuts, line up a few interviews, parents, childcare workers, someone from the government.
Got it.
I'll need a dozen or so questions on each and some general background information on the whole issue.
Okay. Just so we don't double up, what are you going to do?
But she's being open and honest, so only just for the fact...
Naive little Carla.
Yeah.
She's on the ball too. She's too good for the job. Prowsey and Emma let Carla know that her job is not just a segment producer, but a reporter. And Mike, Brooke, Marty are the stars, so to speak. But then you cut to Marty recording a piece to camera in a very busy street.
What's the problem? Too much traffic, mate. Can hardly see you.
I have the sound problems too.
What's the problem? Traffic. Can't see you.
Sounds hopeless.
Well, we might just have to wait for it to quieten down.
Look, mate, why don't we just get a shot of the casino and do a voiceover? Then we can just ditch your piece to camera.
Let's just try another one.
Trev, never tell a journo to get his head off camera, mate.
Did you notice that little bit with Trev? Have a listen to it again, all right? I'm thinking I'm reading into this way too much.
What's the problem? Too much traffic, mate. Can only see ya.
I have the sound problems too.
What's the problem? Traffic. Can't see.
He's having sound problems and he's very off. Like,
Off
yeah,
mic.
yeah. I'm going, yeah, sound problems indeed.
Well, I was going to say, they're going to be waiting a while for the traffic to slow down because I'm pretty sure that was filmed on Chapel Street, round the corner from, I think, the Como Centre. Because I think that's, like, Marty's at the Como Centre car park round the side on Chapel Street, and they're across the road where the old bakery was, and which is now a fancy high-rise development. So, yeah, for one thing, that's a wide street. You're not going to film someone on one side and see anything more than a little speck on the other. But yeah, they'll be waiting a long time for that traffic to quieten down.
It's also nowhere near the casino.
No.
And it's meant to be like near the casino, and it's miles away.
I'm guessing that's sort of probably the nearest, because that's relatively near the ABC studios. It's the same side of town. But I'm guessing they probably figured that is a building that's roughly the same age as the casino. It has a bit of a casino look, whereas the casino itself either is really busy or doesn't look like a casino. I mean, the Melbourne casino covers an entire city block pretty much, and most of it is just a wall with some trees in front of it.
Meanwhile, Mike's recording some of his memoirs into a dictaphone.
New York, touchdown, 11:15. Rain, bleak. Too much work, not enough sleep. Just me, a suitcase and a typewriter. Another big city, another big interview. Barry Manilow was waiting.
It was all going so well until that last sentence.
He realized, like, as he records, more notes for his book, like how sort of slight his journalistic career has been. Like he's done interviews with Barry Manilow. We discover later he was at the opening of Darling Harbour. It's not like he was embedded, with the American army in the first Iraq War or something. He was doing these really crappy stories.
No, well, he was on the presenting track. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Things are probably a lot different now from the glory days when I studied journalism. But when I studied journalism, it was not said in so many words, but there were like distinct groups in the journalism classes, and there were people that were like, oh, you're going to be a TV presenter. You're studying journalism to do that side of things. And, there are other people who were perhaps studying to do radio, and that was what they were focused on. And yeah, it's just Mike was going to do puff pieces for places until he got his head on camera, and then that would be what he wanted to do.
Yeah, well, it was either Barry Manilow or Ernest Borgnine.
I think this is also setting up for in a couple of episodes' time where we pretty much find out that Mike's really boring.
Yeah.
Wait, we haven't discovered that yet.
Yeah, I thought when he was dating that girl, she was actually impressed with all of his celebrity stories, and that was actually what.
Oh, the photographer, yeah.
Yeah, that's what got him with her.
That's right, all the big names.
Yeah, that's right, and they had
Francis O'Connor, yeah.
The mic in the car, listening in on them.
Stu, Trev, and Marty return to the office where Marty hops out at the front instead of going to the back of the building. Otherwise, Marty will miss going through a reception, main corridor, canteen, etc., etc. And how's Mike's memoirs going along?
I went back to the hotel and hit the sack, but I couldn't sleep. I was sitting on one of the biggest stories of the year. Round 4 of the Uncle Toby's Iron Man series was coming to Cottesloe Beach, and I was the only one in Perth that knew.
What a shit exclusive.
Well, it's no Bermagui bronze, but it'll do.
It's no Live Golf or Gather Round, which sort of has the same sort of cachet, I think. Yeah, that has to be a heck of a lot of people who knew about a sporting event happening.
Well, he probably read the press release too early.
Yeah, he did. He didn't see the embargoed bit on the top and was like, "Oh, this is gold."
Mike suggests to Prousey to get a sign language translator to stand next to him in wake of the nerve deafness week. And Marty arrives back in the office through the front door and gives his tapes to Carla.
Oh, Carla, can you get these down to Hugh? A-S-A-P. Thanks.
Sure. Why didn't he just drop them off himself on his way up here?
Don't worry, it's an ego thing.
Oh.
Anyway, how'd you go?
Oh, good. I got someone from Community Services, the minister.
The minister? Great. When?
We have to be there by 11.
What?
Oh, well, she's flying to Canberra this afternoon.
That's not enough time. We've got to write the questions.
Oh, I've done them.
Carla, I can't be there by 11. I'll need at least an hour in makeup.
Well, can't you just have a quick job in makeup or skip it?
And then cut to Carla interviewing the minister off camera. Very clever editing here.
Yeah. Well, I think that was not a common occurrence, but that was a thing that did happen a bit, especially with sort of, I mean, you would have to actually see the story that went to air on Frontline, but some of the time they would have, multiple interviews, and, the real talent was not doing every one of those interviews. They send the researcher out to speak to people for, 2 or 3 of them, and then they might just do the one important one at the center or whatever.
I've done that before, actually. Here we go with my eye story, my eye disease. It was for an early thing this is early days of podcasting. And I was producing a show for 2 up-and-coming radio talents, right? So this is...
Name the talents.
Pardon?
Name the talents.
Oh, one still works in radio and one's doing other stuff. So the guy's working in regional radio is like a manager now. Like, he's pretty high up. And the other guy's just doing emceeing at footy games and living life.
The correct answer was Hamish and Andy.
No, I'm not that good. No, but these are 2 guys. And you remember when this is during the year of the Gautier era of somebody that I used to know. And so this podcast that I was working on, in fact, it's on my YouTube account if you ever decide to look it up. But we had organised Kimbra to have a chat. This is before she became like a decent name. And one of the hosts couldn't make it to the chat, to the interview. So I had to sub in for him. And then when eventually the guy came back, we got him to re-record my questions that I said to her, and then I had to chop it all up. So it was, I was like, I'm going to my mate going, hey, you got to sound more natural and sound more douchey, if that makes sense, because that's the way that I spoke.
And most importantly, nobody cottoned on?
Nobody cottoned on. And then when we were running out of material to recycle for the podcast feed, I ended up releasing the entire unedited episode. So you'll hear me asking the questions. So I'm just going, fuck it. Who cares? The podcast is over.
Yeah. And how did you feel when you had to kind of take your name out? Because, you probably wanted the credit of thinking up the questions and asking the questions.
I recorded that. I organised the interview and I did all the hard work and the research. And I got nothing out of it. There we go. So
yes, because I feel for these producers that just do all the hard work and they don't get any recognition.
This was like about 14, 15 years ago.
I mean, I'm not entirely, again, I don't know, my journalism experience is pretty out of date. But when I was studying journalism, they did sort of tell us this is how television works. And if you want to do television, you'll probably be a segment producer, at least before you get on camera, if you ever do. And basically it was like, look, you'll get no credit, but you'll get lots of money. And it was really just basically, look, journalism is a crappy job that pays really badly. And if you get on television and you're a researcher on a TV show, you'll make a lot more money than you will in most other journalism jobs. So you'll probably be pretty happy with the money. And it really was just like, look, there's a path to fame and fortune, and there's a path that's just fortune, and you should, figure out what you want. But once you go on that path, that's where you're headed.
Yep. I think I chose the less glamorous print journalism at the time option, and there were several other people. I think a year below me was Sam Armitage doing broadcast option, and had a few people, like you mentioned, Gabby Millgate. She did my course, Theatre Media. So I remember she was everyone used to go, "You're terrible, Muriel." But yeah, everyone had their specialisms, and mine was the one that was probably the least rewarding financially, but still fulfilling.
And yet, no, it's not. Kim, you're on here now. Sliding doors.
No, I mean, it's all, everyone's got their all about me moments. Everyone's kind of having their goes, talk about themselves.
Oh, look, I mean, in my third year class, there was like, most of the people were there doing it as just sort of an elective, but the three people I know that were sort of doing journalism as journalism was me, a friend of mine who went into sort of public relations and that and did quite well, and the previously mentioned by me, Steve Oemke, who went on to host Wheel of Fortune and is now a very successful TV producer, and I went to work for Street Press and have yet to make average wage in my entire career. So don't do what I did, kids.
But you're there because you love it.
No, I hate it. No love. I'm trapped. I can't do it.
You can't pay the bills with love, Alison.
Well, you can. You can. It depends what kind of love. There are.
Cut to Carla interviewing the minister off camera, and Brooke finally arrives a bit later to record her version of Carla's questions, which end up being spliced in. So I like how they did the fade. So it looks like a lot of time has passed. In the studio, though, Mike's brushing up on his memoir research.
Hey, Emma, have you read Graham Richardson's book?
Yeah, that's my copy.
What made you buy it?
You were doing an interview on him and I had to do all the research.
Right. What makes this book appealing?
Well, he admitted to all the lies. People love that sort of stuff.
It's run behind the eight ball. We've got none of that in current affairs. And none of the double standards and the lies and the hypocrisy and the What can I write about? Our attention to detail? Our commitment to the story?
In 5, Mike.
Oh, shit, what's the story?
Brooke, childcare.
Brooke, on the auto cue? Yep. Yeah, okay. Brooke Vandenberg, they're asking some pretty tough questions. That's about it for tonight. But just before we go, it's goodbye and good luck to one of our research staff, Kate Preston. Bon voyage, Kate. Until the party, Kate's farewell, where Kate does thank Mike for the shout out, and then he says, it was on an auto cue. How thoughtful.
Oh, and her face.
I would have said it anyway.
Yeah. And it's time for the big speech, but not from Prousey though, but it was from Mike. When I first started at Frontline, I was a long way from being the journo I am today. And I thought to myself, I should get my hands dirty. I should jump in the deep end and I'd sink or I'd swim. Sure enough, I swam. Which brings me to Kate. Yay. When I look at her, I see a lot of myself, sink or swim. So she's decided to do the big trip. Well, Kate, I remember when I did my big trip and I got to France. Now, you know I'm writing a book, and this is all in the first couple.
He's plugging the book in her farewell.
He's also standing in front of a giant photo of himself as well, just to add insult to injury.
You missed the bit as well just before that where Mike says, "Oh, I think this is an appropriate occasion to open up the bar fridge." And Marty goes, "Yeah, I've got a key." And then Mike Foss goes, "Hang on, you've got a key." Mike clearly unaware that Marty's been breaking in and stealing the Grolsch for months.
Yeah. I looked up how much a case of Grolsch costs now. And give or take, it's $60.
It's really expensive to get the proper one with the stopper in it. I looked it up and I would have to import it from the Netherlands, which admittedly is just over the water from where I am. But even so, you can't buy it, without a lot of money.
Hold on, I think it was either.
Well, you can get it in cans relatively cheaply.
Where is it here? Hold on. Let me just double check it. No, yeah, it is. Oh, $60, but it's out of stock on Dan Murphy's right now. Sucks to be them. Yep.
Yeah. See, we should all have a bottle in the final episode of this, but we're not going to be able to afford it.
No.
Unless people buy us lots of coffees.
Yes, please. Links in the show notes.
Buy me enough coffees so I can import some Grolsch with stoppers from the Netherlands.
Coffee flavour. No. Yeah, Grolsch.
Buy me a
flavoured
Grolschie.
coffee. Yeah, Grolschie. Sounds like a bogan name. Grolschie! I don't know where I was going with that. The next day, Emma gives Carla a bunch of tapes for Brooke's story and reflects on the praise on the speech from the night before, where she got 0 credit. Emma points out Prowsey calls it eye disease, and to listen to Mike saying eye next time he has a chat. Now, Marty wraps up his recording of his interview with a guest who needs his identity hidden. So it's a big one in this story. As Stu and Trev pack up, Marty demands the guys to record his reverses, even though Stu's like, oh, no, we're good. But wow, this is really like the first time I've seen Marty's ego really act up.
Yeah, it feels slightly out of character for Marty. It's what you'd expect from Brooke and Mike, but Marty's always been a lot more down to earth as a character, so I don't quite think this sinks, but I suppose everyone's got an ego in the end.
Yeah, he's had a bad ego day.
It's plausible that he could say, look, we need to have this done just in case. You know, you never know. They could be going to edit it and go, oh, look, we do need to cut away at this point. Did you film any reverses? And it's like, oh, well, we didn't do it. Then you'd be in a bit of trouble. So it's they don't make the case for it, but it's possible that it's like, you know, this is something we should do. But yeah, realistically, the whole point is just to show Marty acting up and wanting to make sure that he gets on camera, which realistically for a journalist in his position would be foremost in his mind. I mean, the point when you're at that level, I assume, of journalism, the quality of the stories is important, but what's more important is that you get to be seen and you get to be known as a face and you're an important person around the place. Because otherwise you'll get the boot, whether you're doing a good story or a bad one.
In the office, Mike makes another book entry.
I find it hard to describe my feelings as I met the Dalai Lama. I was humbled, I was awed. I felt like I could come. Don't print come.
Beautiful timing there.
This is one of the ones I had to rewind it several times because it was so funny. It doesn't get old.
No, it's a lovely big dumb joke.
Yeah.
Love it.
As he probes Emma about the turbulent events Mike's been involved over the last 10 years, not the Berlin Wall or anything, it's what Mike's been part of. Carla...
He might have introduced it.
Yeah, possibly.
But that's as far as it would have gone.
Well, Carla does turn up into the office.
Russian coup, famine in Ethiopia, the Gulf War.
Yeah, but it's my turbulent decade. It's got to be events that I've been at. I'm trying to choose between the opening of Darling Harbour and the arrival of the tall ships at Fremantle.
Excuse me, Mike.
Yeah.
The translator's waiting in the studio.
Who?
Oh, the sign language lady? You wanted to rehearse.
Yeah, right. We'll do this later. Yeah, I really think this is a great idea.
Oh, it's a lovely idea.
Isn't it? Yeah, I suggested it.
Sorry?
I suggested it? I did. I was the one that came up with it. Yeah, I was. And I really think I've been involved with the deafness people for a while, and I pushed and I spoke to Prowsey, and is there something wrong with my eyes?
Yes. No.
Huh? Like, actually, Em, can you get me some drops? Yep. They are wrong. They're wrong.
Well, to be honest, as a child of the 80s, the Darling Harbour was a pretty big deal when I was
Oh, hell yeah. Monorail and
Sydney
everything.
it was.
Yeah.
Over in South Australia, we're like, give a shit.
It's like, darling, what a shopping centre up.
Yeah, Harbourside.
The monorail. And that waterfall, that water feature where you go around the spiral.
Yeah.
I've been to Darling Harbour, and I went during the monorail era, and it was a shopping centre with some water there.
Lots of Aussie stuff.
Yeah, Harbourside is awesome. That's the shopping centre where I saw Ross Williams from Full Frontal inside Time Zone with his child. Yeah.
Well, and
So
I'm sure there's
I saw him.
there's a plaque there commemorating that moment.
Does that beat the time that I was in Bridge Road in Melbourne and I saw Francis Greenslade in a cafe? Do I win in this battle of the anecdotes?
Come on, you've got to be more harsher and more determined on the eyes. Yes.
I was on Bridge Road in Melbourne in a cafe, and I saw Francis Greenslade in the cafe buying lunch.
Done.
I win?
Yes, you win the fictional Tim Tams.
No.
The eyes have it.
Hey.
No, I'm sorry, but the time I was on a street in Williamstown and I was told that Sean McAuliffe had also been on that street at another point in time. It was like I'd seen Sean McAuliffe if I'd been there a couple of weeks earlier. So, I feel that was an important moment that we should acknowledge.
So if anyone else out there has got anecdotes of running into or kind of being vaguely near cast members from Full Frontal, let us know. The crappier the better.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Absolutely.
And make sure to cross those T's and dot those I's.
Dot those lowercase J's, mate. Now it's time for the rehearsal, and doesn't that go down well?
Good evening. Welcome to Frontline. Not going too fast for you, Jackie?
I'm not there.
Oh, good. Great. Well, let's try another one. Brooke, with that story. Yeah, I think we'd do everything but the mms. It looks like you're chasing a butterfly.
Okay, fine. Jackie, just do everything but the mms.
Can we all do that?
I love that, like, Auslan has an sort of like, and it involves clapping.
It was kind of that era just before Bop came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, okay, so the Auslan translation of Bop is bop. Bop.
Oh.
Isn't laughing in sign language some, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that's applause is the jazz hand.
Yeah. Oh, the jazz hands is applause. Okay. What's laughing then? Is it like or something? I don't know.
Well, I suppose even deaf people can laugh.
Yeah, of course. But like, what is
the Auslan? Laughing. Like, that would just be something you were doing rather than having to signal that you were laughing. They would go.
It was quite interesting. I saw the was it last weekend? Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally in conversation with Zan Rope, right? And they had Auslan on the side. It was actually quite interesting to watch, especially when they were swearing, and so it was like. When there's like,
seen the dickhead.
One of the funniest things that I have seen is I saw this interview with Ben Elton on stage like earlier this year, and they had a British Sign Language translator, and because he's Ben Elton, he's talking about knob jokes, and the British Sign Language for knob joke is the funniest thing I've ever seen. It is exactly what you imagine it would be.
In exactly that area of the body?
Exactly the gesture you would imagine. It's hard, sort of that, essentially.
Yes, onanism, I think, is the technical term.
Yeah, there's a bit of miming of the rude area of the male, yes.
Gotcha.
And it's very funny. And Ben Elton said, I can't compete with that. Indeed, he could not.
And I also like it must be a common misconception that, the people who do sign language, everybody thinks they're deaf.
Well, how would it...
When, like, if you think about it for at least a couple of seconds, obviously they can't be deaf.
Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I was distracted. Alison has a title for her biography now, which is The Rude Area of the Male.
Is more friendlier than the male. More friendlier than the rude area of the male. There'll be a video of this Ben Elton interview released on YouTube, which the organisers often do release the interviews that they do. So then I can just send you the link and you can see it yourself.
Oh, fantastic.
Assuming they filmed the sign language translator.
Well, that or someone's probably, bootlegged it on their phone.
Well, probably.
Yeah. Well, Stu, Trev, and Marty are at a press conference, but they're not inside the press conference because Marty educates Trev that the idea is to ambush them at the lift. So there's a bit of a...
And more importantly, to frame Marty in.
Yeah. And, they're journalists or, reporters or whatever. Anyway. So in the edit suite with Hugh, Carla needs to edit Brooke's story down for time because it's running a little bit too long.
Too long. We're going to have to cut something out.
We could lose some of the doctor.
Not really. What if we just shorten Brooke's last piece to camera? Are you all right?
I was about to ask you the same thing.
Jeez.
We see a new side to Hugh beyond his just relentless coughing, and that is his terror of being hassled by Brooke. Like hiding under the desk level of terror.
Yeah. Yes.
Scared shitless.
That and also it's some sort of a media version of the Force somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow Brooke is able to sense when she's getting less screen time than she should. I might bring up at this point that there's no edits for the remastered version.
Okay.
No job for Hugh this episode.
Gotcha. Well, Marty struts in to notice how cruisy he walks into the office as well, knowing his shit.
I'm the talent. Yeah.
Well, he drops his tapes off with Dom, only to find that his portrait's coming down in the foyer. But Dom reassures him that new photos are going up. So he's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, Brooke is on a mission after discovering Hugh's edited her story, and isn't she pissed?
Hugh! I know you're in here. I can hear you wheezing.
Hi, Brooke.
You ruined my story.
The new chick made me do it. I had nothing to do with it.
Who?
Carla. She made me cut your bit shorter. I tried to warn her.
Right.
I tried to warn her. I knew your wrath would be harsh.
Hiding underneath the table.
You wouldn't think a man as large as him could get under the table, but he does.
Yeah. Well, when you're fearing life itself, then you would go.
Mm-hmm.
You squeeze yourself into any space you can.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I knew someone who did that. Someone who worked in IT was hiding from someone who wanted some IT help.
IT are in the basement though, anyway, so it's kind of easy to hide.
Well, Marty brags to Prowsey about his classic ambush to get the story, with Carla getting Marty to choose his new photo for the foyer until...
Excuse me, Marty.
Yeah.
Trish just wants you to okay a new photo for the foyer.
Yeah, that's fine. No, actually, that's a better size.
Oh, that one.
What the hell do you think you're playing at?
Oh, well, it was running over time.
So lose the doctor.
Lose the doctor?
It's my story, not yours. Lose the doctor.
Don't worry. Ego. Out of control.
See, throughout the whole thing...
I do like all these little spots where they sort of go, the other people over there are egotistical, but not me.
Well, that's what was pointed out at the beginning. So Brooke pointed out that it was Mike's ego that was out of control. And then the second time round, Brooke did it again, saying it's ego, like with Marty's ego. And now Marty's pointing out Brooke's ego. What has Carla gotten herself into? She's just doing her job. Now it's time for Friday Night Funny Man Elliot Rhodes.
Oh, God.
Oh, jeez.
We didn't talk about this particular segment when he came on our
podcast.
I don't
Because
think
we
been
hadn't
up to
seen
that
it.
part. Maybe we blocked it out of our minds and didn't bring it up.
Okay, it's unfortunate blackface, all right? So...
Well, it's also bone through the nose blackface.
And he's got no shirt on and there.
But Daryl Summers would be going, yeah, bring it. It's a Red Faces act. Oh, Christ.
That's the thing, though. Throughout the 90s, there are lots of examples, not just from Working Dog and The Late Show, of people doing blackface in Australian comedy. And that does continue up until that famous Hey Hey incident when people went, yeah, actually, this is bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like 2010. It just came
15 years ago.
Standstill.
Finally realised that.
I can't believe it was that recent. I keep thinking it was a late 90s thing. And you're like, no, it's 2010. I'm like,
years
what?
ago.
Well, I think
Australian television finally worked this out.
I think the thing was that it was Australian television was leaving it behind and it sort of moved on. And then Daryl was like, no, we haven't. This is great. And then I went, oh, yeah, okay, we're going to have to actually stand up and say this is bad. We thought we could get away with it, but Daryl just wouldn't let it go.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, right, in 1997, this is 100% how Elliot Rhodes would do a take on the Civil War in Bougainville.
And I think,
does not make it acceptable.
I think to be fair to Working Dog, which is perhaps a rarity for me in this situation, the whole point is meant to be that it's meant to be a bad segment.
Yeah.
Like they've clearly gone, we've got to come up with a segment that's obviously rubbish to set up the real joke. And to their credit, they've found something that's really bad, and I've got to do it. But it's just like these days you would come up with something else.
Yeah, because they do highlight that it is pure shit.
Yes.
So it's like a backup.
And it's a terrible song, and it's a terrible take on a civil war.
Yeah, because the sign language translator is still around when this all happens.
The PNG peoples are furious. They kicked out Sir Julius. Bougainville. Oh, how I'd kill to go to Bougainville. A tropical paradise by the beach. A nation that's lost
In 5, Mike.
freedom of speech.
You're right, Jackie. Sorry about this.
Oh, how I'd kill to go to Bougainville. Rouse 'em quick.
I'm not touching that one. He's done it again. See you next week.
That was shit house. He's a dickhead, an absolute dickhead. It was awful. That was shit house. He's a complete certifiable idiot.
So there you go. If you want to know how to swear in Auslan,
there you go.
Well, I agree with you there, Mike. So that's all.
Was this based on something that actually happened around this time?
Not sure.
I don't think so.
Okay, because I have a very vague memory of there being some sort of similar situation where, and it's probably maybe it was a sporting event or something where someone, was off mic but was still being
translating everything.
Yeah, I mean I could be wrong and probably am, but I have vague memories of a similar sort of thing taking place.
If it isn't based on a real incident like the one you described, then it really is just a twist on the hot mic thing that we had a couple of weeks ago. It's the kind of thing that could go wrong in that situation.
Yeah, it seems quite pointed. Like the whole thing has been leading up to this one joke, and it's like, was this something that happened that they're referencing, or did they just think, hey, this would be a good joke to have?
Well, just putting my pedant's cap on.
Oh, hold on.
Pedantry. Okay, so they got in a sign language translator, but seemingly only for the Mike Moore bits.
Yeah, that seems to be it.
Yeah.
Because, there's not much of a tradition of it here in Australia. There's only one program I can think of that does it. But certainly in Britain, there's what's known as the sign zone.
Mm-hmm.
Which is basically repeats of programming, usually very early in the morning, with somebody that's always off to the side that's translating everything in British Sign Language. So you would think that if they were going to get somebody to sign for the show, that they would it'd be for the whole lot, not just Mike's bits.
Yeah, we don't see any evidence that any of the reports have the person in the box in the corner doing it, or that there's any live version of that, because realistically, you with sign language people, you have to give them a break because they can only sign for a certain amount of time. So for a half-hour program, if you were doing it live, you would need at least 2 people to do it. And the logical way to do it would be one person does the Mike bits, the other person does the stories.
What I thought, which is based on absolutely nothing but conjecture, would be that the actual stories being pre-recorded could have had subtitles done through the old teletext service that we used to have, whereas Mike's bits being sort of live needed somebody there to translate as they happened, because you couldn't just go off the auto cue in case Mike said stuff that wasn't on the auto cue.
But the news has live translation, doesn't it? Like subtitles?
Yeah, I think so.
For that reason.
Yes, but it's
Well,
if you've got.
I mean, it's like all the technology has changed in these 30 years. I mean, it used to be that somebody would type everything out like a stenographer. I think nowadays, like there's a bit of voice recognition. Somebody speaks it into the computer and it comes out as text. I mean, there's probably even AIs, kind of stuff happening now.
Look, the subtitles for the news and that are still pretty rough. I was reading them last year for a bit, and you can see, if there's a lengthy bit of description, they don't keep up. They will sort of stop and fall behind, and it's still pretty rough and ready.
But there's no sort of tradition of sign language on TV in Australia. The only thing I can think of is I think there might be like one weekly bulletin on ABC News that gets the sign language treatment.
The COVID briefings, they often had someone off to the side doing sign language.
Yeah, I think that's the only time, really.
Yeah, or other disaster events, emergency events, they'll have that.
So what we're basically saying is that blackface has a stronger tradition on Australian television
than sign language.
I think sadly it does. Yeah.
Well then, the translation ends up in the papers with Mike blaming Carla because she instructed the translator to do everything but the or catching butterflies. But Prowsey tells him not to worry and it'll be a good story for his book. Now, Marty and Brooke are losing it over whose photo is bigger in the foyer. As Prowsey calls the kids into his office, Mike points out the pettiness of them while walking in front of his own headshot on the wall.
the wall-size shot of him.
Yeah. And he thinks that photo might actually make a good front cover of his book.
I want to know where that picture is now, because I like to think some production assistant took that home and it just covers their wall.
Wondering how do you get that home?
I know, it's probably in the lobby at Rob Sitch's house. When you open the door, there's just got one of those 2-story, lobbies with just a huge photo of himself there.
I reckon he should mount it on the ceiling of the bedroom so he can just stare up at it. Don't worry about a mirror. Put the photo.
Remember when
the front wall of his house?
You know what they should do? You remember when Sam Newman got...
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You knew where I was going to go there.
Yes.
With the Pamela Anderson face.
Yeah, blow it up even bigger on some metal and have it like, a cheese grater with his face on the front of
that's it,
his house.
And the front door is his mouth.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the thing with all these bits I was thinking was that at the time, again, this was quite, eye-opening for a lot of people that, they're not journalists, they're talent.
Stars.
Yeah, but these days you just go, well, yeah, it's brand management. All they're doing is, boosting their profile. That sort of thing that they're doing now is just part of the language of, being on the media. The whole thing is to promote yourself. I was reading a story yesterday, I think. Someone was like, oh, I've written this story and it's about, it was about some topical subject, and go to read it. And the first 4 paragraphs of this going on about his own personal problems and, it was self-promotion before we got to the stuff that I'd come to read. And you just brush it off because that's how the media works now. Everyone expects you to be out there selling yourself. And that's what, everyone on Frontline is doing. It's like, my job is to keep my profile up, not, break the stories that need to be told. It's break the stories that will get me more attention so I can continue my job as being the person in front of the camera. And, once you get used to it, you're sort of there going, oh, all this stuff's fair enough. Yeah, you want a bigger photo because that's, a sign of how well you're doing.
After Prowsey tries to settle Brooke and Marty down, Mike continues his book chapter ideas while he instructs Carla to make some music choices for his upcoming appearance on Doug Ayton's Favourites radio show, which I believe that was ABC Radio of sorts. Yep.
Here's your list of questions for tonight.
Oh, great.
And there's a transparency of the photograph in the foyer. I've rung your publisher and I'm sending it over. That's the running order for tonight, and that's the auto cue for tonight. If you could just check it before I put it on the
yeah,
machine.
sure, it's fine. Okay. Oh, listen, Carla.
Yeah?
I'm going on Doug Ayton's Favourites today for this nerve deafness. Actually, it might be a chance to try some anecdote. Anyway, can you fax them through some musical choices?
Your musical choices?
Yeah, can you choose them?
Well, what sort of music do you like?
Oh, all the good stuff. Bryan Adams, Michael Bolton, Celine Dion, Mariah Carey. Yeah, it's all sounding a bit the same, isn't it? Throw in a classical track, make me sound a bit cerebral.
Vivaldi?
The Who?
What a crappy list of musical acts that he enjoys.
You know what?
Yeah, even he recognised it was probably not suitable.
I hadn't seen this episode really, and as soon as he got to that part, I'm going, I bet he will say Celine Dion, and then bam, he says Celine Dion.
Yep. It's 100% what Mike Moore likes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And clearly not a fan of Wagner Vivaldi.
No, not at all. No, but he probably thinks Four Seasons is Frankie Valli.
Yes.
Yeah. But time for the radio chat.
We've got to run along here.
Yep.
Your final track is a classical one.
Yes.
Vivaldi.
Yes, for Vivaldi.
And one of the best-known classical tracks of all time.
I would think, yeah.
But for those people out there, just a few who might have been living under a rock.
Yeah.
What one is it?
Vivaldi.
Yeah, but which track? Which piece of music?
The one from the Volvo ad. For Vivaldi. I love that.
Surely everyone knows Vivaldi's Four Seasons. It's like one of the best-known classical tracks ever.
Yeah.
Even if you don't, the subtitles helpfully point out that it's the spring portion.
Yes.
Oh, I like that extra detail. That's good.
And Mike blames everything on Carla. And Carla's busy with the auto cue, though, running late because Brooke made her re-edit her story until something happens.
Oh, shit.
What?
The auto cue, Marty's name's off the back announce.
I know.
Oh, shit!
But doesn't Mike throw that stuff in?
Oh, but Mike can't throw anything.
But he okayed it.
Certainly a big story. Back after the break. We out?
Yep.
Was there something missing from that auto cue?
Think Marty will notice?
Oh, I wonder who that could be.
Yep. Yeah, okay, Marty. Yeah, meeting straight after the show. Yeah, you call Brooke.
Wow, but wasn't he good at totally improving and being, saying stuff on the fly?
Oh, as we saw during that
the work experience girl.
Yeah, the work
was asking
experience.
questions.
Oh well. Well, Mike.
Now, also, I quite like that there were a couple of lines just before that clip where Prowsey says, "I generally just bung the show together anyway," and Carla says, "Yeah, sometimes it looks a bit like that."
Yeah, it's
a lovely little unintentional backhanded compliment.
It's not that surprising that he, I guess, ultimately okays her going based on that comment. She's basically insulted him.
Yeah, you could see his reaction to...
He's bruised Prowsey's ego. Who knew Prowsey had an ego?
What?
Well, all the egos are in Prowsey's office for a meeting. Marty, Brooke and Mike. And, man, they're going full steam ahead, aren't they? And they're complaining about Carla, so, what to do.
She's got brilliant research skills, she's organised, she's efficient, she's quick, she's a gun. And what's more, she's a team player who cares about the show, which, quite frankly, is what we need.
Oh, all right. We'll put it to a vote. Now, do we want to sack her? All those in favour?
I say she goes.
I say gone.
I say bon voyage.
Well, it looks like the eyes have it.
End scene. Yeah.
Nice little bow wrapped on the episode.
Yeah.
Did you watch the mid-credits, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, because even Mike is continuing on with his book writing, especially for this moment.
My knees were shaking as I waited for the presses to roll. Roll, I said, roll. I was sweating back in my hotel room. Any minute, I thought, my big scoop would no longer be my big scoop. I was just a cadet at the Brisbane Courier-Mail, but I had found out the name of the mascot for the Brisbane Commonwealth Games, Matilda. And what's more, I knew it was a big kangaroo. Also, I knew it winked. That is a corker of a story.
Get out.
Is it a corker?
Well, again, it's one of those things that, as a kid, you remember.
Well,
when looking at the YouTube
I remember
footage,
Matilda. And
Matilda
winking.
wasn't. Well, I guess she winked too, but the footage I saw, she was blinking as well. So added extra information there.
With so many of these books, you would see these memoirs from these people, especially politicians, and you would be like, who would be buying these books? There's nothing in them. Their lives are just sort of, then I went to student politics. Then I just, went on the most obvious career path. And then someone recently pointed out, basically these books are sold as money laundering scams for, the way to give money to politicians, because they give them these huge advances that they're never going to earn back. They print the books, they put them in a skip out the back because no one buys them, but the politicians get the money and then they can go and do with it as they will. And so I sometimes wonder with, books like Mike's book, it's just, one of his big business mates going, oh, Mike's done well by us over the years, we'll help him out. And, Mike's going, oh, I've got a book out. And the book's, on the shelves for 3 days and then it's just in the bin because who wants to read Mike blathering on about his pathetic journalism career and, rapidly rising through the ranks because he's a pretty face who'll do what he's told.
I'm just kind of surprised that he hasn't hired a ghostwriter. Considering everything else in Mike's life is done for him, I'm surprised that the actual writing isn't done as well.
Yeah, you'd think that would be an episode where, his manuscript is given back and he's told to punch it up. And he ends up getting a proper writer to do it. And they do too good a job. And, Mike gets jealous of the fake version of Mike in his book.
That would be a good story.
Also, did anybody pay attention to the end credits?
No.
Glenn Robbins?
Okay, because there is an interesting credit in there. It kind of reminds me a bit, Alison, you'll probably get this reference. The Goodies episode that has that the show was written by Graham and Bill with Tim's pen.
Yes.
So there is a credit in there. Mike's sign language translator, suggested by Glenn Robbins.
Yes. That's right. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah. So
yeah.
So are you saying that Glenn Robbins came up with the butterfly thing, the butterfly clap as translation?
I must admit, I don't know how much of it would have been all Glenn, whether it was just the idea of get a sign language translator to translate shithouse and dickhead on the air.
He could have just had the idea, but he could have also suggested the translator. He might have known them.
Based on Glenn Robbins' Frontline fan fiction called The Butterfly Effect.
Sadly, that was never published.
Disappointing. It was pre-internet, so we can't even look for it online.
Damn. alt.nerd.frontline fan club.
At least it wasn't slash fiction. I think we can be grateful for that.
Yes.
Well, that concludes Frontline Season 3, Episode 10 and the Champagne Comedy Podcast, Episode 76. Email your complaints to champagnelateshow@gmail.com. Check out this episode's show notes for all our socials and Facebook search Champagne Comedy Podcast Group. And don't forget to buy us all a coffee or a grolsch at buymeacoffee.com/TLS Champagne Pod. So special thank you to David Asmo for your Mike Moore impression. Thank you, Alison, Daniel, Kim, and Tony, and you, the listener. I'm Matt. Thanks for listening. Catch you next episode.
Thanks.
Bye.
3 episodes to go.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Champagne Comedy Podcast, created by fans for the fans. For more information on this podcast, please visit champagnecomedy.com. Produced by Matt Fulton Productions, mattfulton.com.au.
That was shithouse. He's a dickhead. An absolute dickhead. It was awful. That was shithouse. He's a complete certifiable idiot.
Fuck you too.